Dad. So,
Well, Jeanette,
are you all right?
how did we get here today?
I don't know, but we're here to have a chat, aren't we?
We're going to blame the Vogels here, I think.
Blame the Vogels.
Yeah.
Blame Lynn, Uncle Ken.
Yeah.
So where are we, Dad? Tell us where we are.
This is Annalone, County Down, where I was born in 1846. And this is the Presbyterian church at the top of the street. My mother and father were Church of Ireland. But her family, the Marks family, they were Presbyterian. And they went to this church. The Church of Ireland is further up the road. It's about half a mile away, maybe more. And whenever I was growing up, living down near the sea, this was the closest school to go to.
Okay.
Both churches had schools. The Church of Ireland and Presbyterian, they both had schools. So my mother was keen for the family to go, and the school is actually behind the church here. The road wasn't as busy as it is nowadays. I would say 1950 would have been the year that I would have went to church here. And it wasn't a very busy road, but it was busy enough because it's the main road between Newcastle and Kilkeel. And there's a patrolman there, and they called him John Lee. And he lived down near where we lived. And John was a bit of a character. And if you didn't stop for John or he put your hand up, I think he would have nearly taken you to court, sort of thing. Now, at the corner down here, at the top of the street, was the spot where the local retired men, fishermen and that there, they always congregated down here. And I remember a new sergeant coming into the police station, and he tried to move them on because he thought that they shouldn't be loitering here. But they've been doing this for hundreds of years, and it caused a great lot of consternation.
So Dad, I find it funny that you remember the name of the patrolman, but you can't remember the name of any of your teachers.
I can't remember one name of a teacher in that school.
That is so funny.
But I'm also glad to know that May, my sister, she can't remember names either. So I think it runs in the family.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
So did you go to church here? No, you just went to school here?
No, just went to school here because it was the closest school to where we lived. But we always went to church in the Church of Ireland up the road. Now that wasn't the end of the thing because that was the church service on Sunday morning. And Sunday afternoon we went to the Gospel Hall, which was
we saw it on the way
to the left here.
Right, yes.
Right. Sunday school there in the afternoon. And then some nights we were taken to the Methodist church, which is between the Church of Ireland and here. And one of the things about that was there was an old organist there, and his favourite hymn and tune was the 23rd Psalm sung to the tune of Crimond. The other thing about this church is this is where the Marks Church burial ground was.
Right.
And my mother, she always insisted she wanted to be buried on the Marks burial ground,
right,
which is around at the back of the church.
What was special about here? Why did you want to be here?
Because this was the family, the church, and our mother and father and all were buried here, so...
Nothing to do with the mountains and the sea?
Well, she said that something to the fact that whenever she was buried here, she would be between the mountains and the sea. And
should we go around and have a look at the grave?
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
No,
right, this is the Marks grave, and this is where my mother and father are now buried as well. So
right.
It's a nice site. It's just overlooking the mountain that way and the sea this way.
Lovely, yeah.
So we'll go down through here. I think the straightest way to it.
Yes.
And all these graves here, you see Gordons and McCulloughs and...
The old familiar names to you?
Yeah. This is it.
Are these all families that you would have grown up with?
Well, their names...
Oh, there's the Annetts. You mentioned the Annetts one other time.
That's right, and McConnells. So
tell us about
this is the Marks grave. Better not walk over these graves.
I know.
You know. On the grave, this first one to die was Robert Marks, 1947.
That's your great granddad?
That was my granddad.
Your granddad.
He died whenever I was 15 months old, so I was born 46.
Yes.
May Marks, this one here, She died in 1930. She's only 20 years of age.
Would that have been who Auntie May was named after?
That's right. The Margaret Marks is my grandmother.
Yeah.
She died in 1961. Then my mother died in 2001 and my father died in 2002.
So did your grandparents all stay in Annalong?
Yes.
I know you moved to Belfast
Yes.
at one point,
Yes.
but did they all stay here?
Yes. The interesting thing about my grandmother was this, that she finished up only having one leg. Now, I'm not sure whether she had taken something or what happened, but she only had one leg and she went about in crutches. So there you are. So this is the grave.
Was their house near yours?
And then as well as that there, yeah. And next to us is the school. Now it's been redesigned a bit.
Now, is it?
It's now the church hall, and this is where I went to school.
Until you moved to Belfast?
Well, no, I went to secondary school then and Kilkeel after that.
It's
you
the
know.
primary school.
It's the primary school.
Go on then, Dad. What can you remember? Any memories about this school? Any memories?
Yeah, what I do remember was that in the back corner was the toilets, outside toilets.
Lovely.
And I don't remember very much more about it other than that there. In the winter time there's those metal fireplaces. Whenever they were going flat out, the bottoms of them were red, you know, because they were metal, they were red. And this small wee third of a pint of milk.
Very good.
And sometimes in the winter time it was brought in and it was frozen. So the weather must have been quite cold those winters compared to now.
Sad to say.
And the other bit, now we're here, I'd
Yeah.
just like to add on that this is a new church hall on the other side of the road, which is built. That was all waste ground whenever I was growing up. And it turns out, having looked at a bit of history, that this bit of ground here was the site that whenever they were building the reservoir in Silent Valley, a lot of the building material and that there come in boats through the harbour.
Right.
It was brought up here and they had a train running from here to the Silent Valley.
Just for that reason?
Just for that reason. Once the Silent Valley was built, they dismantled the railway and that was
My
it.
goodness. Just...
Beyond that there is the Annalong River, so it come down sort of this side of the Annalong River.
Now, were any of your family involved in that? Was Grandad not involved?
My granddad, he worked a wee bit at the Silent Valley, not very much, but he said he did, so I take it as word for it.
Yeah, I believe it. Very good.
My sister here, May. May's a lot younger than me, but she says she remembers something about this Orange Hall here. I just want to find out what exactly she remembers about it.
What I remember is when the lodge would come back after the 12th, going in and just getting the lemonade.
Right.
Getting the
Right.
just the bottles that were like bottles
Right.
with the straw in it.
Right.
And getting your lemonade, or you just drink it without the straw.
That's right.
And getting the
Yes.
lemonade, because our granda,
Robert
well, I
Marks.
didn't know him, but he
Yeah.
was the worshipful master here,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
He was the worshipful master here because I was born in 1946 and he died in 1947, so I didn't really know him either, but he was the worshipful master of LOL 1702, which was known as the Brunswick Lodge, and he was very, very active in the Orange Order. Whenever we lived in the Shore Road, there was an upstairs in a very small house, and on the stairs up to it there was this wooden box, and it turned out it was the banner of the lodge was kept there. Obviously for security reasons they didn't want to keep it
Here.
here in the hall in case somebody broke into it. So it was actually kept in our house. So every 12th of July morning some members come down, took it away, and then they came back, and in my day, early days before probably you were born, they used to bring us a wee crate of lemonade and a few sandwiches that was maybe left over in the field and that type of thing, because that's what the way they did it. So this is the hall that it all happened in,
Yeah.
and it's well tucked away just off the main
Those were
street
the
gate.
original gates, do you think?
This was nothing like this in my day. This was just a lane up into it, and
No gates on.
no gates, and see there's pillars and all here now. So yeah, they've moved on a bit. Right. We're down to the harbour now,
Yes.
which is the focal point whenever I was growing up. And there wasn't all these wee boats here. There were skiffs, what they're known as skiffs in my day. I don't see. I'm trying to pick up one here. There were wee boats with one of
Like
those
that
over
red
there.
one?
You see that even black one down there? That would be in a skiff. When they went out for herring fishing and they went out for lobsters and all this type of thing. And then beyond the harbour is the old corn mill. And that was run by a family called Tommy Hamilton. I say Hamiltons. And in the summertime, he was one of those people who stripped off. He was a big fat man. And that pier on the far side, he used to come down there, strip off to his swimming trunks and jump in to the water on the far side there. That's the entrance into the harbour down there.
Yes.
And the boats had to come up that side there.
You all watched
and
them.
come in there. And I used to watch them, and they used to make the biggest splash you ever seen in your life because of the size of them.
Very good.
And then say that's where the Anlong River comes down up there at the top, and this harbour here
Right enough, yes, to see
was
it.
built for schooners. There were boats that used sails and all that type of thing, and they were quite big, and they brought in coal and all that type of thing. And the boats used to come up there, and then they had to get through that narrow entrance
Oh yes.
and come in here,
Right
and would have parked here, and then they would have discharged coal, whatever it is. My father, he used to get a wee job, and if they come in, had to go into the hold and dig out the coal and put it into a big bucket, and it was wheeled up and put it onto trailers. And then the coal yard was just here, in front
So
of this
where'd
house
the coal
here.
come from? I'm being
The
stupid.
coal
aren't
would
I?
have come from Liverpool or from
There
England.
we go, little link, thank you.
I thought I'd bring the Liverpool side in, saying that you're living in
it's
Liverpool now.
worth
isn't it?
mentioning,
Yes.
definitely.
So this part here basically was the coal yard directly in front of that house there. Down here was the Kipling store, where the herring and all was brought into and gutted, and it was then smoked, and then beyond that there was an open area, and there was these big trucks, and they used to put the herring into them, and the local ladies, they were the gutters, and they gutted the herring, and then there was barrels. I don't see any barrels about here now, but they were then salted and put into barrels and filled up with water, which became brine, and they were then sent away to France and all these places. So that was a big thing. My father, he used to drive a lorry. He used to go to Killybegs, which is way up in Donegal. There's a big fishing port up there, and they used to bring loads of these herring down, and they were gutted, and so it was work. It was work for the local people. This is my granddaughter Millie Duff, from Liverpool, the whole way from Liverpool. So we've been down here before, and we were talking about various things, and I was explaining to her about the fishermen going out, and one of the things they did was they went out to catch lobsters. Now, how they caught lobsters was that they used these things here called lobster pots, right? And as you can see, there's an entrance in here. The food in underneath here, the lobster goes in, then can't get out, and that's lowered into the water and pulled up probably every day, maybe twice a day, from boats like this here. And that was part of the way fishermen lived off lobsters, which were costly thing. I don't think I've ever ate a lobster. Never was growing up here. They were too valuable to give people like me, sort of thing. So that was that. Now we're standing here in front of this boat, but beyond us here now there's two houses. The small one to the right, that there belonged to the district nurse. So they had a district nurse and a doctor and Anlong in my time. And she covered the district, for example, births and things like that there. The house beside it was, I mentioned earlier about John Lee being the patrolman up at the school. Mm-hmm. He lived in that house there, that big house there, so that was John Lee's house. This next house next to it, it wasn't there at the time. It was It was built recently, obviously. But just in that grounds there was another place called the Good Templar Hall. And that was one of the most significant things in my life growing up, because we used to go there once a week and they taught you about smoking, no drinking, and that was the line that they talked about, sort of thing. And it was a hall really, and I don't know where but the people came from Lisburn to it. I know Marxists from Lisburn come up every now and then, those meetings and all this type of thing. But to me it was a very significant thing in my life, Good Templars Hall. So that's this part here. See, we're just on the bounds of the shore here now, on the rocks. That is where I learnt how to get crabs. Whenever the sea went out, you went down, and in the rocks there was wee holes, and sometimes these crabs would have clambered into these holes and stayed there, and they're visible whenever the tide went out. So you had a thing called a cleek. You pulled them out, brought them home, and your mother boiled them, and you ate the big toes and other bits and pieces. And that's part of the way we lived in those days.
Did you ever catch any crabs?
Oh yes, yes indeed. But you only caught the ones that you could eat. Other than that there, I can never swim. My mother's sister, she nearly drowned just off the rocks here. Whenever she was quite young, maybe a teenager she was. And because of that there, my mother would never allow us to get into the water to even learn to swim. Never even had a pair of trunks. So that's this bit here now, indeed. And we'll move on, I think, now round to the homestead where I was born.
Very nice.
This was the pump where we got all the water. There's no water in the house, there was no sewerage, there was no nothing in the house that way. So we had to come out here with our buckets and whatever. And as far as I can remember, it's that long ago now, you turned this here and the water come out. And that was fairly ancient, isn't it?
It is.
What?
Did you have to wash your dishes here?
No, you washed them in the house, but you know,
I see.
it was an open fire, and the water was heated in kettles and all that type of thing. So that's the significance of this. This house here was also a very important house. This is people called Chambers, who were very big into the fishing, and they had at least 4 sons, and each individual one had a big fishing boat which fished all around the British Isles, and they were all known for their names. Green Pastures was the first one, Green Hill, Green Isle. I'm not sure what the other one was called, but this is the family here that ran those boats, and they were very wealthy in our days. You know, that house there in my time was top of the range.
I see.
Mightn't look a lot in now.
Was it always blue?
I don't remember it even being blue, you know what I mean? So that's the significance of that there. Right,
Very
we'll
nice.
dander around here now just. And this first house here was people called McCartans, right? Now you can see their house is a lot bigger than the house that I was born in. You can see, looking at it there now, there's upstairs and windows and all this type of thing. The next door is the door into our house.
Oh, so this was your...
This is where I was born and reared, right? Now this here was just rough. This is the garden. Now it wasn't like this here, it was just a gate. And down on the left there was the coal shed and the toilet.
Oh.
If you wanted to go to the toilet,
If you wanted to have to come outside.
had to come outside.
Oh, wow.
There's no running water. And you can see up on the roof there, those are skylights, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's a room up there. That's where my grandmother slept up there. And the living room was here. There's an open fire. There's a door on this side here, went in, and there was a bedroom. That's where my mother and father slept. And then there was stairs up the side there, and that took us into a bedroom at the top.
Oh, I see.
So In the winter time, as you can see, the sea is fairly far out now, but it can come in a lot closer than that. And whenever the weather was quite bad and wind blowing, the sea would come in here.
Would it come all the way up to your house?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, it wouldn't happen very often, but it did happen. Well, it's just remarked about the height of the door.
Yeah, I
In the
asked
house.
if your dad could fit through
And
the
I
door.
think if everybody remembers back years ago, people were a lot smaller in height than they are now. Everybody seems to be growing taller and taller. It's quite low, isn't it?
It is very low.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So this here's all new. This is all new. There was a wall along here, and there's a gate here. So this here's all put down from the people who have taken over this house. These, I'd imagine, are summer houses now. I have no idea who lives in them or where they come from, but they all seem to be the same along here. So you can see, hadn't too far to go to get to the sea.
Did you like coming out to the sea?
Oh yeah, well, you lived by the sea, so really and truly it was part of your life.
Yeah.
And just beyond this wall here, you can see a path, right? Now that path there was the path that the fishermen, whenever they were going to the harbour, rather than walk down this rickety road, in those days there wasn't cobbles or anything, it was just rough, just like the stones there. It was very, very rough. I think it's because it's obviously a private road. It must be. It's not owned by the council. So this is the way they come to the harbour, and as you can see, that's the harbour down there. Now I just want to show you something else here. If you come here, you can see the white building there?
Yes, I do.
Right. Well, that house there is known as the Nook. The Nook, right, that's the name it got. They were all nurses of high rank from Belfast. This is a summer house for them. So they come down weekends, summertime, to go for this house here. But this path you can see here, it continued where they have the wall there now, it continued right up there to the far end.
I see.
And it was a right of way, really, you know what I mean? They really got a bit annoyed about it, these people in the Nook, and they put stones across and this type of thing.
Trying to stop them from
To stop
walking.
the fishermen. But the fishermen were brave enough to throw the stones away and sort of say to them, look, this is our right of way here.
I see.
But I see now they have got a wee wall and all built, so obviously we're talking about 50, 60 years ago.
I see.
So times change.
Did you ever want to be a fisherman?
Not really, no.
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 I had no inkling at all to go out in boats. Don't know why.
I see.
Because my mother, she probably put the fear into me about sea and water and this type of how dangerous it is.
Did anyone in your family know how to swim?
No.
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 I see.
Nobody knew how to. I didn't learn to swim until I went to Portadown and went to the swimming pool there and
I see.
got taught there. So that's the way it goes indeed. We lived here. I know Maid didn't live. She wasn't born. And then we moved from here up to Ulster Avenue, which is just around the corner. It was a new block of houses that was built by the council, I think it was at the time. So we moved up there, and that's where actually Maeve was born. My sister. Now I think I was the eldest. Samuel was next to me, and then Harold, and we all were born here, I think.
I see.
So it was a small house for many, 3, 4, 5, 6 people.
6 of you, yeah. How many siblings do you have?
I have me, my sister, and my 2 brothers.
The 2 brothers, I see.
Yeah. So there you are. So we're going round to Ulster Avenue now, and then we'll get May to discuss it. Right. This is where we moved to before you were born, believe it or not, from that other house. It was a bit more modern, Doric cooker and running water and toilets and all this type of thing. So I actually had pigeons out the back of this house here, believe it or not. Didn't raise them, but I had them indeed.
Yeah.
So you were born here then, is that what you're telling me?
Yes. Well, I was born in Kilkeel, but brought home to here.
Right.
But it wasn't as modern as it is now.
No,
Nothing like it.
No, I understand that.
So 2 doors up was one of my best friends,
Yes.
Heather Chambers.
Yeah.
And then 3 doors down was Joanne McKibben.
Yes.
And they were my best friends
Yes.
whenever we lived here.
Yes. Yes.
My memories, one of my memories of this is the school that we went to, that I went to, not you, but me later on, was
Top of
just
the road.
at the top of this avenue.
Yeah.
It's called Ulster Avenue.
Yes.
And the school was the top. And I remember coming home at lunchtime
Yes.
and getting a bag of chips that were made with white cap lard,
Right.
put into a paper bag and eating them.
On the
And
way up.
they were so nice and tasty.
Very good.
And
Very good.
that's one memory I have of coming down home and
Right.
getting my
Right.
bag of chips.
Very good.
And,
Very good.
behind that house there is a field.
Yes.
And
Was a
the-
field.
Yeah. And there's a
To a
path
gate.
right down.
To a gate. Right.
So I remember one day, the day actually that our grandmother died.
Yes.
I remember I didn't know what was happening, but I was told to run down. And I can't remember whether it was the baker or the grocery man or who it was,
Right.
but to stop him
Right.
and to tell him to come back up to the house. That must have been the means of communication those
Yeah.
days. There's no phones or anything.
1961
Yes.
would have been.
So I've been 6 then.
Yeah.
But I can remember vividly running out through the back, rushing down and catching him down.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
That's one memory I have.
Well, the other thing, there's Elizabeth Gibson looking out here. The other thing I remember here was the football pitch was just up there where those other houses are built on the left up there. That's where our football pitch was. And there was a fence running down there with a metal pipe along it. And here one day, didn't Samuel doing his head turns, and he broke his shoulder. I think it was his collarbone or something like that there. Finished up going to the hospital. And that's my record. And out the back, I had built myself a pigeon loft, and there was a great into pigeons. Not that much me, but they were around here, and that's where I had my pigeons before we went to live in Belfast.
Very safe place to be.
Yes,
Very
it was
safe place to
indeed.
play.
So there you are. So that's where I spent. I don't know how many years. It must have been about what you were 8 going up to Belfast. So it must have been 4 or 5 years here. 6 years maybe, indeed.
Well, I was here from I was born.
Aye,
So
right.
and you were 4 or 5 years before that, were you?
Oh, I was thinking. I don't know. I can't remember.
Yeah, 11 or 12 years here. In
Yeah,
total then.
but there you are. It's a different place altogether.
Yeah.
I'll go up here and speak. Aye, indeed. Okay, Lynn. We're back to this headstone we were at some years ago. We didn't make headway in relation to who's buried here because you really need to go through the records of the church. But I would imagine it's the family grave, I'd imagine, of Adam and Mary Jane Young, right? They were the parents of my grandmother, who was Margaret Young. She was born in 1873 and died in 1962. And she was married to Robert Marks. And they had a daughter, Mary Margaret Marks, right? She was born 1910 and died in 1830, so she was 20 years of age. She died very early. She never married. I remember there's a gentleman about, whenever I was in my teenage years, and he actually was her boyfriend before she was married. Wilbur Gordon, they called him. And then there's my mother, then was the second one in that family. So the Youngs in Hillhead, Ballyvey, they're 10 of a family. Now, they all didn't live, obviously. They all didn't survive. Some of them died quite young.
So that would have been Granny's maternal line, would have been Young then?
Yes.
And would they have been farmers, or what did they do?
Farmers.
Farmers.
They were up in the country, see, they were miles. Although I think some of them actually went fishing. As you go up the coast here, there's wee coves where fishing boats would have come in and grounded and were pulled up onto the beach, and they would have done seasonal fishing, for mackerel and that type of thing. So there's possibility some of them may have been doing something like that as well, because in those days money was hard to get and they did different types of jobs.
And we don't have any relatives then in Hillhead, Ballyvey now, do we? Was that all handed over?
No, we do. Whenever we go up, we'll see this there's Bobby Annett who lives in a new bungalow up there now, but I don't know whether they knocked down the old farmhouse or not, where some of the other family of the Youngs who didn't marry, they lived in that their day sort of thing. So we'll not know to get up there and have a look and see.
So we're in the Church of Ireland in Kilkeel.
Kilkeel, yes.
This is the family church for the Spearses then?
That's right, that was the Church of Ireland. This is the Spears grave. We don't know how many, at this moment in time, how many Spears are buried here, right? But my father inherited it, and because none of us were interested in getting buried because we're in different parts of the country now, this was handed over to Etta Spears, who married Sam Spears. And
That would have been your Aunt Etta then?
the Aunt Etta,
Your
who
Aunt
had the
Etta.
garage,
Okay.
right? So Stanley, he was the oldest
So your
in that
cousin
family.
Stanley then?
My
took it?
cousin
Is he
Stanley.
Stanley Spears?
Stanley Spears, yes, indeed.
And
She
then-
was Etta Henderson. You know, she came. Above it here is another Spears with a different spelling, Spiers, and that is the same Spears family. But some of the Spears family married into another Spears he was spelled Spiers. They changed their name just.
The lady didn't want to change her name. She made her husband change his name.
That's right.
And then, so if this is the family church, so all births, deaths, and marriages were here then?
Yes. So if there's any check be done or anything like that, this is one of the places to go to really to get the Spearses.
Cargany is it?
Carrigney, that's from the Silent Valley.
So that was the homeland they came, so they would have come from this direction, was
Yes,
it?
that's right.
Down in.
That's right.
Do you remember coming down then? Oh, no, you wouldn't have been coming from there for church, would you?
Oh no, maybe I always lived on along.
All right.
That was one of the reasons my mother, she wouldn't go and live in Carrigney. Whenever the house became far,
Available?
she didn't want to be near it. She had this, because her mother was living with us non along, and she only had one leg and one thing and another. So this is and then your mother May, I mean, she's disappointed now. I understand that she wasn't given the right
She's no
to.
grave to be buried
She's
in. What's she
no
going to
grave.
do?
She may get.
We'll throw her in a bogle grave somewhere.
So
Spears spelt incorrectly with an I.
that's right.
Yeah, because it's two E's, double A.
Yes. Well, that was changed. You see the first name on it, James Spears. He died in 1950. He was a brother of my grandfather, who was Alexander Spears. There was four of them. One of them was William, who went to Isle of Man and married there. And then there was another one, I've forgotten his name, and he never married. So he's probably buried in that grave there, I would imagine. These Spearses here lived just beyond up the lane, same lane as my grandfather lived, but they lived the next house up. And his son was James, and James married Connie, who was from England, and she's the last to be buried in that grave there. They have twin sons, same age as me, and about 4 or 5 daughters. So this is a name change just in that generation.
Yeah. From the spelling, the name is the same and the spelling just changed.
That's right. That's right.
There we go.
Okay, fair enough. This is Bertie Spears, same name as myself. The trouble is, this boy decided he would change his spelling to, instead of S-P-E-E-R-S to S-P-I-E-R-S, right? Bertie and me, he's a twin, we're roughly the same age, and I've known him and James for years. And he's lived in this house. The first thing I want to talk about is the Spears family home, which is just a short bit down the lane from their house. What can we talk about it, Bertie? All we can say is this, that it started off with a thatched house. When you say it was a thatched house?
That here was a thatched house, and that was a thatched house at that time.
Yes.
And then it built up, and they built that one down there. I don't know what year it was built in, but that one here was built in 1926. My father and them put two. There was no back to it. My dad and them put that to it later on.
Yes.
But the front bit was built, and That wee low end was one of the ends of the outhouse.
Yes.
And they all lived in that where they were building us here.
Very good, very good.
You see?
So your father was
Jim.
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 Jim, and his link into me basically is his grandfather, his father. My grandfather was Alexander Speers.
Aye. Well, my granda and Alexander was two brothers.
Yes.
And left John F. and Robbie and all full cousins of my dad.
That's right.
So
that's
you'd
right.
like to end up with a second cousin of mine.
I'm a second cousin
Aye,
here.
that's the way
That's the way it is indeed. Bertie here, he worked up in the
Water service.
water service up in the Silent
Silent
Valley
Valley.
for years and years and
I was
years.
40 years on it.
And the interesting thing, as far as that's concerned, is that just the side of his house here now is what I knew at the time was called the clay fields. And it was a massive big hole.
There was a big track right up the middle of it.
There was a big track and it was all. And the reason it was called the clay fields is because the clay was taken out of this area here and put onto the face of the dam,
The dam.
the Silent Valley. That's where they took the clay out.
That's the deepest bit of it.
They took the clay out, you see. And there used to be a steps somewhere. You used to have a pump or something over there.
The
North side. And the reason we're not talking about this at the other house is because the other house has been knocked down since the new owner bought it.
Rebuilt.
It was Tommy
Shields
Shields.
bought it.
He bought the farm. It was a small farm of about
16
acres is right. And it was bigger than that there, but it was divided off into your
I
grandfather.
was divided off. We got 7 acres of that. Actually, that ground there, that green bit there, would have been my bit of ground too.
Oh, right.
They took ground right round it.
Was that the time of building the dam? Right.
They took all
And
that.
they paid for it? You got money for that then?
Well, what we got for the 4 acres, you might laugh at it now, but it was big money then. Like, I got £260. See, they were going to build a dam and start it, but then the Second World War started.
Oh, right.
And then it was held back.
So that was there in the 30s, the late 30s. Yes. The other thing was, I was going to ask you about your mother. She didn't come from this part of the world.
She's an English woman.
How did your father ever meet a woman
Well,
from England those days?
How my father met a woman. My dad worked in the building of the dam.
Yes.
And there was a big shaft down at 80 or 90 foot deep that they had for lifting dirt out of it and all the rest of it. And right round it they had a sort of a wee shelf. And then the skip would have been coming down.
Yes.
And the men would have stood on this shelf.
Oh, right. Protect themselves.
To protect. And this boy was a bit of a cow, I mean, with Dawson. And he had an old bag, and as it came down, there was somebody in the skip. He bent over to claw this up, and the skip came down and killed him. It was Jim McConnell, you know Jim McConnell's tank?
Yes.
And Big Willie McConnell and George on it, and my dad, they all left. They couldn't stick it.
Aye.
And they went over to Durham to work, on another dam over in Durham. And that's how he met him there.
So he was working over in England.
He was working over in England,
Because we could never understand how your mother got across here.
Well, that's how it happened.
Right. And do you have any relatives over in England now at all?
I've just the one cousin left now.
At all. And then some of your family also went to South Africa, didn't they?
My aunt went to South Africa. My Aunt Aggie went to South Africa, and she stood in the front of that house and she's telling my granny and granda, "We'll never be back," and she never come back.
Right, Bertie, thanks for your time, indeed.
Time,
and, this is it.
I was polishing the car and tidying the car up today.
Yeah, that's where the old house was there. Garden.
There's the pump there.
I saw the pump.
What?
That pump still works.
That's it.
It just has a show you got water.
Just our field here, right down to that. See those sheds down there. That was all our ground. And it goes right across the other side of the lane.
And it would have been a 2-storey house, the same as that one?
Roughly the same as that there. Roughly the same as that there. Now, to the left here now was a hay shed, right? And then you'll see in some of the photographs there's a photograph with a car with all these people standing around the car.
Yes.
Right. Well, that was taken in the front yard there of the house.
And what was farmed then? Like what was the money coming from crops or?
Yes, in my father's time, he never really farmed it. He actually kept some pigs, right? And he had some sheep. And these fields here, they were let out till a man called John Donaldson Now, John Donaldson would be the grandfather, maybe of some of the politician. Or
Jeffrey?
Jeffrey, maybe it's not his grandfather. He could be his grandfather. And they lived away in the forest. Kilkeel River runs down in that hollow over there, and then this Ballin ran on the other side of that there. And so basically, they hired it, and they sometimes put in potatoes, sometimes they put on cattle. They paid it for the year, sort of thing. And
And then who was the last member of our family to live in the farmhouse? Was that
Granny Speers?
your granny?
My grandfather, whenever he died, she lived there, and we used to come up from Monalong on our bikes, Samuel and me, to stay in the house with her, because my mother, she was determined that she wasn't going to come and live up here.
So you and Samuel would have been there a lot,
Yeah.
the most, not
Yeah.
Harl
No,
so much?
No, Harl was too young, sort of thing. And the interesting thing too was that in the front of the house there, going that direction there was a thing called a lint hole. You ever hear of a lint hole?
No.
Well, this is in the days of linen. And you used to grow flax. And whenever they actually pulled the flax and they put it into water, into these holes full of water, and that decomposed somewhere or other. Then after that, then they took it to the flax mills. Now, there used to be a flax mill down on the river down there.
And then took it to Belfast?
Took it to Lisburn, river was going to, sort of thing. So there was a lint hole down there in my day, you know what I mean? There was just a place of water on it, you know what I mean? And they put this down and they put stones on it, and they stayed for so a certain length of time.
And when Granda had the threshing, would he have had a threshing machine whenever he worked?
Oh, he
owned it?
He owned it, yes. And he went round all the different farms. But you see, it was a seasonal thing too. It only happened maybe for 5 or 6 weeks of the season, or 8 weeks sort of thing.
And when he was here, then his two brothers set up their own businesses rather than get into farming or anything.
Yeah, but John F, he was a great businessman, and then Samuel was a lot younger than them, you know, than my father. It's just people like that. I think you know in life yourself. There's people willing to do things like that. There, you know what I mean. My father was never one like that.
Yeah.
There.
And then when you were coming up from Annalong, where is that Annalong in front of us there?
Annalong's to your left.
So
that's Kilkeel down there.
Okay.
Then you go Ballymartin and then Annalong.
And would you have walked then?
No, bicycle.
Bicycle?
Yeah. It's a fair wee drive. It's all uphill, as you can see. It's all happy enough to go. Sometimes we would have left here and went up to the Silent Valley and took that road known as the Head Road.
Yeah.
But once you got across to what they call the Laney,
Yeah.
it was all downhill then.
So it's easier just to go around that way?
Well, I don't know. It was longer.
Yeah. And was your granny Speers nice, was she? What sort of a woman was she?
She was just no woman sort of thing, and we were there just for company for her, you know what I mean?
Did she just die in her bed then?
No, she went in to stay with her daughter in Kilkeel, and that's where she died in there, you know. I had actually joined the police at that stage.
All right, okay. And was the farmhouse similar to like the house in Annalong? Was it the big open fire, and like was it sort of what you see in the North American Folk Park?
They had a range and all, a range in it, and then there's a back scullery to it. And
so bigger and more modern, really?
The churn in it, but it was one of those aluminium or something, that type of thing. Yeah, it was an aluminium churn, and there was water. Obviously, there was a tank full of water all the time, and it came through a tap sort of thing.
So you had water in the house and all?
Washing dishes, but for drinking water, you always went to
the well,
the pump.
But you never missed the farm when you left it?
Never enjoyed the farm for the simple reason that my father had me here every Saturday, and I couldn't get playing sport.
And Uncle Samuel never loved it either.
I don't know about him, but I never would have wanted to be a farmer because of that reason. You know what I mean? I love working in the land, I love working in soil and that type of thing, but I just did not like it. The lane wasn't like this here. This is concreted. It's been spent a lot of money spent on it. It just was a rough lane, which sloped down onto each side. On each side there was gullies, you know, for the water ran down. So you had to make sure that every so often the water ran onto the gullies and didn't run straight down the lane. So it was just.
And it was stones on the lane. Did you
Yes.
have to put the
Oh, aye.
stock it up all the time with stone?
You had indeed, yeah. You had indeed.
You didn't do the walls or anything, did you? They were already there, the dry
No,
walls.
these are new walls here now. These ones here. See, these 2 fields are ours. This here was ours. Although it didn't go back as far as this here. This has been taken in. The lint hole I'm talking about was down over there in that corner. So this was all these are all new gates
And was the lint? Would anybody in your family have been doing the?
oh, aye.
Oh, the women did that? Yeah.
No, it was a family. It was a farmer's thing. It wasn't women.
They all did it.
Because you had to pull the flax. You know what I mean? There was no gate like this here. You know, and there was a garden here, and there was an outside toilet because you had no inside toilet.
And when the family was here, would they have stopped to like enjoy the view and put flowers and all, or were they just working all the time, heads down?
Just as Bertie Spears says there, they're living here all his life, and yet he never stands to admire the countryside, you know, or admires the view. But you can see the Kilkeel, you know what I mean, and a clear day, and it's a nice place to be.
Whenever you've looked back at the documents, would you have thought there were tenant farmers probably to start with, and
Yes,
maybe then bought the land?
Yes, they paid so much into the barn. I think it was the barn there, some of those, obviously originally. And then the government then got the money. My father, he paid it off at, I don't know what year it was, but
Do you know who the landowner would have been then? Who would the have been tenants of?
it was the Barney,
All right.
Kilmore,
Okay.
Kilmurray Barney.
So this is on the site of the original farmhouse then?
Yes, exactly, almost exactly the same place.
What was the farmhouse like?
It was very similar to the farmhouse just further up there, probably a bit bigger.
Quite spacious then for everyone.
It was quite good, you know, it was
Yeah.
quite good indeed.
2-story.
Yeah, and then on the bottom side it was a cow shed, right? Up here there was a cow shed as well as you went up, and this bit here was open space.
And you would have come up here and stopped, and then your cousins would have been over in the other house there.
Yes.
And then who was living in that house behind when you were a boy?
Whenever I was a boy, it was Bertie Spears that we've interviewed there.
Yeah.
It was his family, his father and mother, and then these 5 girls.
He had 5 sisters?
Yes.
And he was only boy, was he?
There was 2 of them, they were twins.
Oh yes, that's right. And the other one's down at the Granites
He's down the road, the joinery.
joinery.
Yeah. But they were all a lot older than us, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
those two twins were roughly the same age as me,
Yeah.
you know.
And who was their dad again?
He was Jim.
James.
James or
Yeah,
Jim.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Oh, Dad, so this has been lovely. Thank
Oh,
you so much for
I'm-
sharing all your story with
I'm
us.
nearly in tears here now.
I'll cry. But it'll be lovely to share with our girls and future
Yeah.
generations.
Well, this is
so
it, you see.
It's been great.
Indeed. Well, it's been very interesting, and it's been very interesting to see what this producer does with all the.
Over to Uncle
Oh.
Ken. Right, that'll do.
Okay.
That'll do.